Here, you probably know, the school's been here about 8 years. So it was purpose-built 8 years ago, and so you'll see the corridors are much wider than they would be in other schools. Perhaps not yours now, but generally they're much wider. So it enables children with either in wheelchairs or who have greater difficulties walking in your space, then obviously that enables them to access the school more independently. Anya probably told you we teach the national curriculum exactly as you do at Sedgehill. Obviously ours is heavily adapted. The most important thing, there's two crucial things. One is about enabling our children to be as communicative as possible. So we want to enable them to communicate with other people, with each other, as much as they possibly can. The other is that they are as independent as possible. That's that, and that might be, for example, our most able children might be able to live at least semi-independently at some point in the future. Our less able children, we want them to be able to do as much as they can for themselves. And if that means that, for example, they can lift themselves out of their wheelchair instead of someone doing it for them, then that's what's important. Make sense? So our handrails, obviously for children who require more support for walking, again to enable them to walk independently rather than to hold someone's hand. Do you have any particular questions for me as we go around?
Hello!
Hello!
Any information you can get us?
Okay. Learning difficulties, more profound physical difficulties. Some of them don't have the muscle control to chew and swallow, so they chew. Hello! So it's about, so the reason we use the base in addition to the classroom is because we believe we can meet their needs better some of the time in this kind of environment. They'll get a quieter environment, they'll get a higher level of staff in this environment. Okay? So you're very welcome to look in, but I'll ask you to turn the camera off.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, you're very welcome to come in. Please poke around, have a look. With a cupboard in the, with a kitchen in the cupboard there for food technology. Adjustable high tables that enables our children in wheelchairs to access, as well as obviously you can actually get under the table, and adjustable height sinks. Okay.
Oh, blue.
So this is our Year 4 class. It's a fairly standard classroom in terms of all of our Key Stage 2 classrooms. There's a single key difference between here and our Key Stage 1 classrooms. They have ensuite bathrooms, ensuite toilets. By the time they get to Key Stage 2, we expect them to be able to go and use a bathroom. Okay. So it's about enabling them to make progress in their independence. Our children with autism use individual simple timetables to enable them to understand what's going on during the day. You may know yourself, you may know from students with autism at Sedgehill that understanding what's going on during the day and coping with the routines and the changes of the day is what's incredibly difficult if you have autism. So we support our children's understanding of that with visual timetables. Okay. Wrong classroom. Anton. But it's nice to see you back.
Anton.
Have individual education plans, it's all on statement. All of them have individual accessible plans, and they're here on the wall.
I don't want to get anything.
All right, no, I wasn't very keen either. The purpose for our more able children is that they have some more understanding and greater control over their own learning. For our less able children, who won't necessarily understand for themselves, it's about their friends understanding their learning. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So all the children in the school have accessible targets aimed at their understanding. And the second is for children with autism. Again, it works in a similar way. They spend part of the time in the autistic class base, part of the time in their own class. The reason we don't put them in the base all of the time is because we believe in inclusion in our own school. So we believe it's appropriate for them to be included in their own class for periods of time. That make sense?
Can I have a call?
Some significant differences between this room and the classrooms. All of the children have individual timetables, just as some of them will do in the classrooms. There's much less around the walls. We have individual workstations for children to work. All of this, the purpose of all of this is to provide a quieter, calmer environment, and most importantly, a distraction-free environment. If you have autism, it's incredibly distracting if there's lots around the walls. You know yourself from your own classrooms. As teachers, we're encouraged to make classrooms as attractive as we can, as stimulating as we can. So we put your work up and we put loads of stuff around the walls. It's great for most of us and a nightmare if you have autism, because the reaction, the response is actually that's just too much information coming into the brain. And that makes it much harder to cope with what's going on and what's being asked of you. So that's why there's less around the walls. And that's why we use individual workstations. So children will come in, you'll see there's very little in there. They'll come in with their work trolley, so they all have their own. And they'll come in and they'll work, usually, almost always, with a member of staff. Very occasionally independently, but usually with a member of staff. Key Stage 1 corridor. I'll take you into our nursery. It's not foolproof, but it's generally an incredibly secure building. It's quite difficult for the children to get off site. Obviously it's designed to be. We want it to be very, very secure because we want to enable our children's independence. So you would see during the course of the morning or the afternoon, if you came during teaching time, you would see children around the corridors taking messages or coming to collect the register and all that kind of thing. We want them to do that on their own. We don't want to provide a member of staff for them. So we make the building very secure. Hello? No, that's fine. I don't know where they are. So this is our nursery. If you can remember as far back as your nursery, it looks much like any nursery. They have their own play area outside. I can tell you more about the nursery. The alcoves built into the corridors. One with the yellow top is a standing frame to enable their standing positions. They might have different work chairs, or this is effectively a self-propelled electric. The one at the top can be locked off, so effectively you're only using the bottom one. So most of the time the top handles will be locked off, so they're not being used, because we want our children to be independent. At least what we want is our children to know that when they're in the classroom that's learning time and they can't just leave. If we lock the top handles, they're not actually learning not to leave, they just physically can't do it. Does that make sense? So actually we want them to be able to learn the process for themselves. They're there, of course, because there are times when, for their own safety, we don't want them to leave the classroom. So it provides us with an opportunity, really. It means we can lock off the doors, or we can't. It's up to us. Makes sense? So for our youngest children with autism, when they start the school, actually life can be incredibly difficult. Having autism is incredibly stressful in itself, and then coming to a completely new environment and being expected to do things that they haven't thus far been expected to do is very, very challenging. That's the reason we have an outdoor play area here that's covered over. So it means throughout the time that they're here, throughout the year, when they're having real challenges and experiencing great stress in the classroom, they can come outside. So that's why we have this covered over area. Openness is open. No, we might have to go up. But you can see through the door there. Yep. It's similar to the autistic class base upstairs. Individual workstations you can see on the opposite wall, and individual work trolleys. The base itself operates in exactly the same way as it does upstairs. What I didn't tell you upstairs is the single focus for our children with autism when they're in the base is about developing communication, because we believe if our children can't communicate, there's a whole load of other stuff that they can't access. So it's about communicating. Yeah.